welcome to the Album of the Year podcast. My name is Marty, and with me as always, there's my guy.
I'm here, guys.
The big Chris Wright.
That's
there
right,
he
Chris
is.
Wright. Hey, guys. How's everyone doing this week? Man, 1984. We're steeped in 1984 still.
Steeped in the
Marty.
80s, man.
Do you feel suitably steeped? I came out hot pink. They steeped me so long.
They steeped you so long. You're basted in New Coke.
Yeah, I look like Cyndi Lauper hair. I thought I saw somewhere that New Coke was coming back.
Yeah, they're doing it back for Stranger Things season 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's great. We're going to have to get that for the podcast.
Oh, we're going to get it. We haven't had any beverages on, themed beverages.
We haven't done that in a while. We need to, New Coke is in our hearts. And also in our hearts here back, at least for some of this episode.
For some of the episode.
Stephanie is still here.
Hello.
Hey, so how do you feel 1984? Do you feel in tune with their Cyndi Lauper 80s? Or
I feel slightly out of tune, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's what they usually say when I have a microphone in front of me. Slightly out of tune, but no, they don't really say I love it part.
I love it.
So we're halfway there.
I thought it was the first time I had a good time talking about the Bengals on the first episode. It was great.
I love the Bengals. Any chance to listen to the Bengals, man? Go back and listen to it. But
seriously.
we got 2 good albums to talk about today, too. It's going to be great. I'm super excited to do that. But before we do that, what we always do is we talk about
the charts.
The charts.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of 1984.
Yep. And I thought,
it's not bad, actually.
There's some good stuff on here. I don't think it's as strong as the 85 chart. I remember when we were looking at 85, we were like, hey, this is really good.
It was good, yeah.
84 is kind of a little soft compared to that, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
What are some notable songs on here? Just things that catch your eye.
Dancing in the Dark.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good song.
I do too, but it's, and I can say this about...
Okay, sorry.
Here's the thing: when we saw Springsteen, do you remember? That show? Stuff?
I think I remember that awesome show.
Yeah, we saw him on the Rising tour. So
Okay.
I love that album.
Post 9/11 album.
Yeah, it's such a good album. But and that tour was great. And I think they ended the show. Well, they ended the show with working. What's the song from Born in the USA? Working on the Blacktop or whatever. Working on the Highway. Working on the Highway is the name of the song. Anyway, but before that, they played Dancing in the Dark. The synths were really turned down.
Really?
And it was like just a rock. They did like a rock song.
I remember that.
10 times better.
That's so funny.
Those synths, I think they sounded. I think Rob Sheffield once said of it, like that the synths on Born in the USA sounded cheesy even then.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not the point. That doesn't keep it from being a great album. I think he's right.
Yeah.
But when I hear Dancing in the Dark, that's the first thing I think. It's like, and it's like,
I love it, man. I love it. I don't think it's my favorite song on this list, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you see? Somebody's watching me. I already went hard against this song at one point. You and I were talking about it. Yeah. I don't like that song. I mean, this has been said before, but I'll say it. It's like Michael Jackson is singing the hook. Everything Michael Jackson on it is great.
Really? Michael Jackson sings the hook on this song? Oh, I didn't realize that.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
I think we did some weird harmony.
Wild 3-part harmony there. All right.
You were the one that shined in that one, Steph.
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't even rehearse, guys.
That's okay. And neither did Rockwell on the final take. Because everything that's not Michael Jackson on this song is terrible. Rockwell was Berry Gordy's son.
Oh, really?
So it's literally like he's just doing Barry. Michael Jackson's.
Rockwell, more like rock.
Dad,
not well.
More like throw Rockwell in a well.
Oh my God.
That's just cruel.
So, Dad, I want to make a record.
Yeah, Dad,
give me Michael Jackson.
Give me Michael Jackson. It's exactly what happens.
He's just down the hall. I'll bring him over.
Right.
So to me, it's just it's just not good.
Kenneth William Gordy is his real full name. It's crazy.
Rockwell's full name?
Yeah, that's what his name is. Yeah. Yes, Owner of a Lonely Heart. What do you think of that song?
I like it.
Yeah, it's not a bad song.
I really like it. Like, I know that Yes fans don't, like, they think it is like a sellout era. Yes, or whatever.
For sure.
And I get it, but it's still, if you just
like a
judge it,
hit,
if you judge it, though, based on everything else, even going on in the 80s, it's still kind of arty for an 80s hit song.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? It's pretty wild.
Have you seen that movie Blow with Johnny Depp and... What?
No, it's done.
Marty.
Did I just leap headfirst into an inside joke?
All right,
joke
two
here?
things, man. No, it's an inside joke between you and me that you've clearly forgotten. So you've already asked me on the podcast whether I've seen the movie Blow.
You're right,
and
I have.
we got into an argument about it because that's when you discovered that I didn't watch a lot of movies.
That's right. Oh my god.
That was ages ago.
Now,
though.
Marty,
I can see why you forgot.
I did forget.
Do you want to just tell him?
We got you an early Christmas present.
I got you the poster for the movie Blow.
Oh,
I did.
my God.
And I'm going to give it to you today. It's downstairs.
Are you serious?
Yes, I did. So I've never seen the movie Blow, but I saw the poster, and
45,
So not only did you just bring Blow up,
what did I do to deserve all these gifts? This is great.
yeah, you get a 45, you get a poster of Blow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Chris, that's amazing. Well, anyway, I can't believe I just nosedived into that one. But
Nosedive, Blow, come on, man. Jokes like that don't belong in our podcast.
Anyway. But no, there's a scene in that movie where it's like a few years later, and then like the main character is like in his like 30s. He's like probably like a few years younger than us, and like that it's his birthday party, and you kind of like walk into the room with him in the scene, and that song is playing "Owner of a Lonely Heart."
And that's
is
how
playing,
you know it's.
And that's how you know it's the 80s. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's really funny. Actually.
I think of it
good
off
way.
of the. I reacquainted myself with it from the Grand Theft Auto Vice City soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Because it's on
Yeah.
that, and it was on that I was because I always thought it was just like the worst cheesy old '80s garbage.
Yeah.
But then I heard it on that, and I was like,
It's got
and
some,
now I
it's
like
got
it.
its, yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad.
How do you feel about Jump, Van Halen?
Van Halen's Jump.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think it's all right. You know, this is kind of the beginning of the end for a lot of like coming from the guitar community. You know, I have read a guitar magazine in my day.
Oh yeah.
This is
No shortage of Chris's criticism of guitar magazines.
cranky about guitar magazines, but the you know, this is beginning where, you know, Eddie's playing synthesizers, and a lot of people
Yeah.
thought that was you know, crossed the line or whatever.
Yeah.
And but I like it. I think it's fine. You
It's
know?
all right.
You know,
it's a good time.
yeah, it's
agreed.
I mean, if I'm going to listen to a Van Halen song, that would be on the list. You know,
Yeah, I would say so, too.
You know,
Yeah.
There's also "Jump for My Love" is on here,
Yeah.
song with the Pointer Sisters.
Pointer Sisters, yeah.
Which of the two versions of "Jump," 5-year-old Chris in 1985 liked the Pointer
Yeah.
Sisters song a lot better.
So wait, are those two songs the same, or are they just
No,
both
they're
called
different
Jump?
songs. They're just both
They're
called
just
Jump.
both called Jump.
You know how
Okay.
sometimes in music there's like some kind of weird synchronicity, and like three songs with the same word pop up at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jump in.
Yeah, apparently 1984 was the year of the word jump.
So, to all the girls I've loved before, Julio Iglesias and Willie
I was just
Nelson.
thinking of that.
How in the world did that
All
happen,
the
Chris?
girls
Can you?
I love.
Look, all right, I can
That's
explain. I know
like
how it
Willie
happened. So there were a lot of girls they'd loved before.
And they felt like they should write a
needed
song,
to write a song
it.
about it. And so destiny was that they would.
Julio, meet Willie. Willie, meet Julio.
You know,
What
my
was
first
that
concert.
vibe in the studio, man?
I don't know.
Like what?
That's a good question.
All right, Julio, I want you to sing this in B flat. I don't even know, but
Yeah, the very first concert that I ever went to was Willie Nelson at the
Yeah.
Battleship Texas, and I was a kid.
Wait a second. The Battleship Texas. What is?
Yeah,
Explain
it's
that.
All right, so there's a battleship. So down in Houston, in
Sure.
the Gulf, there's an old World War One era decommissioned
Yeah, sure.
battleship, and it's the Texas, and it sits out there next to the San Jacinto Monument. So it's at San Jacinto, and so as we were kids, we'd go to see we go to the battleship, and then next to it is a big field, and Willie Nelson was there, and so I didn't know that much of his stuff because I was like 6 years old, but I was like, I sure hope he plays to all the girls I've loved before.
So
And he didn't.
So that
He
was
didn't.
on your radar.
That was
when
on
you
my
saw him
radar. It was the
live.
only thing I knew that, and I
Wow.
guess
He's like, I can't
on the
do it
road
without
again.
Julio. I
Yeah, he
can't.
said the
I'm sorry.
it's
folks.
disrespectful to Julio to say, because then you only sing about half the girls you've loved before, and that's
You
not,
gotta
That's-
get all.
yeah.
you
of
got to
the
get all the.
girls.
It's disrespectful to the girls more than anything.
But what else we got?
Well,
here?
it's a sad song, "Say So Much" by Elton John. This is Elton John has a couple of hits on here, and
I
he's
guess
going
that's why
through-
they call it the blues.
Yeah, and I
It's on
kind of
here
like
also.
these songs just okay, you know, but they're, you know, It's weird to have these songs where they're almost guilty pleasures, but they're Elton John songs, so they shouldn't be. But they just feel kind of like, if I'm going to listen to sad songs say so much, it's like, I don't know, it's 80s nonsense, really.
It is, dude. It really is.
But it's still Elton John singing a good melody, so I can't hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's true. What album is this on? This isn't on that Sleeping with the Past album, is it?
No. This is a few years before that.
Before that, okay.
Yeah.
This song
Breaking Hearts is the name of that album. I don't know that album.
This song was covered by James Blunt. Remember him?
Wow. He had that make an even wimpier version of sad songs.
Right. So there's 2 Huey Lewis songs on here, and I don't really care for either of them. The Heart of Rock and Roll and I Want a New Drug.
I still kind of like The Heart of Rock and Roll, but maybe as a nostalgia thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I do remember dancing around to that song.
And If This Is It, so 3.
Oh, that's a good song.
That's a pretty good one.
That's a good call.
I'm with you on I Want a New Drug.
Please
that I
let
don't
me know. This is love. Yeah, okay. That is a really good song.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
It's got the do.
We're pretty pro Huey Lewis on this podcast.
We are a Huey Lewis positive podcast.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I love that because I think it's very, very possible that we could be 3 people sitting in a room griping about Huey Lewis right now, but we're not. We dig him.
And our life is better because
I think it
is. Our life is clearly enhanced with the existence of Huey Lewis.
Thank you, Huey,
all there is to it, man. Let's see what else we got.
Come On, Feel the Noise by Quiet Riot. Steph, your favorite song.
This does remind me of being 4 years old because my brother had that album.
Oh, really?
Metal Health.
Metal Health.
I
remember it was on cassette. And I think he thought it was really funny to play Bang Your Head for me when I was 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he taught me how to bang my head.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I just imagine this little 4-year-old version of myself going around banging my head to that song.
What's fun to me about that is when Steph and I first met, you knew some rock stuff, but you didn't know a lot about rock music.
Not very much.
And it's funny because we would talk about rock music, and sometimes I felt like I was, in those early days, I've never even told you this, but I felt like I was exercising the ghost of Metal Health because her idea of what rock music was still kind of defined by her brother's rock music when she was a kid.
And my sister and her boyfriend listened to hard rock.
Really?
Motley
Crue and stuff. I'm not saying that Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and all that had passed her by because you knew some people who liked that, but you hadn't quite worked out.
My friend Liz had an awesome CD collection. She was the only one who gave me a little window onto the world.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's always that one friend that just kind of helps you evolve into, helps your tastes kind of move forward in some cases,
That is true. I had an ex-girlfriend, and she's still my ex-girlfriend, just for the record.
What a relief for me to find out. When you
that
said
was very close.
had never told me something, I got a little worried.
But she taught me a whole lot about music, and then I kind of moved on like that. And I think I kind of played that role for you quite a bit.
Gosh, big time. Yeah, once I met Kris, and we discovered Ralph's Records $2 section. I'm like, okay, let me fill in the gaps. And I just $2.
And you found a lot of cool stuff. What was interesting about those days is she didn't know enough about music to know so she would get the Bangles, which would be great because maybe if she knew more about the Bangles, she might have been I'm probably not interested in that, right? But then also Bananarama. And what were some of the?
Here's the funniest one is that song Mr. Jones.
Oh, gosh.
I thought
Counting Crows.
Yeah, and I saw the back of the CD had a song Mr. Jones, so I got it. Yeah. It was the Talking Heads song called Mr. Jones.
Oh wow, they have a song called Mr. Jones.
Yeah, and it's nothing like.
No, I'm sure
Jones.
It's nothing like.
But I liked the Talking Heads then, so it was okay.
Sure, Talking Heads are great. Absolutely.
Kind of a weird first album to get into, Naked.
Yeah, that one's not their best, but
but it's still probably, well, I don't know. Now, as positive as we are on Huey Lewis, we're mixed when it comes to the Counting Crows on this podcast.
We're just between all three of us.
Yeah, no, between you and me. Yeah, okay. You really like them, and I really am skeptical.
Lukewarm on
it.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Look, I think Adam Duritz is a really good songwriter and kind of underrated, but I can understand, the argument kind of ceding over to, they're just kind of they can be kind of a cornball modern rock band in some cases, which I guess is fair. That first record of theirs, I don't think, I mean, Rain King is pretty good and stuff, but
That's what we always quote.
Okay, I guess.
No, dude, I know. Counting Crows are a band that in 1994 I loved almost as much as any other band
Really?
on earth. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
a huge Counting Crows fan.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what killed it for me?
What's that?
Seeing them live.
Really?
Yeah. The show that I saw them at was so boring and disastrous.
Really?
That it kind of made me kind of rethink whether I liked this band at all.
No way.
Yeah. So.
Oh man.
What happened? Did Adam Duritz have like a breakdown or something?
Well, I mean, they were
Like-
trying to do that Van Morrison thing where you make every song like 12 minutes long and you go through it and everything
Do
like
a
that.
more improv
They like,
type stuff?
yeah, so they did like a really long version of Mercury and they did the slow, mopey version of Mr. Jones and all this. And it just like
Really?
it was lifeless, I thought, you know. He
That's
kept coming
interesting.
out and singing, I was out on the radio, starting to change. What was it? Have you seen me lately? And he kept like interjecting into other songs and stuff. And it's maybe it's a valid artistic choice. Maybe as an adult I would see it differently, but as a
Right.
teenager it was like, what are you doing? You know,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even like I wasn't so much of a like Philistine that I couldn't get that you
Yeah.
could play with the song. It was just
Right.
it wasn't working. You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if you can do that, I was just gonna say, like, you can do that. You can have some creative license over your stuff when you play live, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like, that's just the bottom line. But
Yeah. You mentioned Dancing in the Dark. Good song, right?
I think it's a good song. Yeah.
Dancing in the Sheets, not a good song.
I don't know if I even know it. Who did Dancing in the Sheets?
You know Shalimar?
Oh, jeez.
Dancing in the Sheets.
Shalimar. Ooh,
Yeah.
man.
Not good.
No, it doesn't sound good. Doesn't
Well,
sound,
when I think
nothing about that sounds like anything I'd want to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Hall & Oates Adult Education.
Oh, man.
So, and okay, maybe I've brought this up on the podcast before. I don't know if I have. I forgot. I'm going to preface that every time I bring up a movie. Now I'm going to have to preface it with this, right? So, there's the movie. I can't think of the name of it. It's kind of like early 2000s comedy, kind of the style of like the whole kind of like Knocked Up, that kind of thing. And it's basically the guy is kind of a, not the greatest looking guy. And he dates this like really, really attractive girl, right? Well, the one guy, his best friend is in a Hall & Oates cover band and they're called Adult Education. Yeah. Yeah. It's a Jay Baruchel. Do you know that actor? TJ Miller plays his best friend, and TJ Miller, they're trying to like plan this event, and somebody's like, "Hey, do you want? Can your cover band play this event?" He's like, "Adult Education is a tribute band." That's what he says. It's so funny. Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
I was looking at this list earlier, kind of prepping up for the playlist that we put out for 1984, and Say It Isn't So by Hall & Oates was on that list. And I was like, God, that song, I was like, how does that go? And I listened to it. And it's crazy because it's been stuck in my head now for like a week.
Yeah.
And it's not that good of a song, I don't think. But it is very catchy chorus on it.
Yeah.
So Hall & Oates is weird because on one hand, I kind of think they're just corny and but then on the other hand I'm like they were kind of soulful and
I love Hall & Oates, dude.
I think they're probably better than I gave them credit
they are
for.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we were talking about Huey Lewis the one episode, and you were kind of like, there was a time when people ripped Huey Lewis, but he kind of came into this whole kind of came into his own, and people were like, oh, these are actually really good songs, they're really well written and
people lightened
they're
up.
Constructive. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with Hall & Oates.
I think that's probably true. I saw Questlove talking about how great they were. They're a Philly thing and everything.
Loves
so
it.
It's like I probably should cut these guys some more slack.
Yeah. So is that John Lennon's song on this list? Nobody told me.
Yeah.
What do you know about that song?
That's off of Milk and Honey, which obviously he was killed in 1980, so many years before. So this is kind of a posthumous release, and nobody told me there'd be days like these. It's okay, but it's like a just like starting over thing.
Really.
I feel like John Lennon in 1980, when he was he'd been dormant for about 5 years and he started to work on music again.
Yeah.
I feel like you could hear the engines starting to fire up, but they weren't really there. I don't think Just Like Starting Over is a classic album necessarily.
Yeah.
And the outtakes from it are not going to be classic. But there are a couple of, like the songs aren't bad. It's just it's part of. I mean, like newsflash, John Lennon being murdered was a huge loss to music.
Yeah,
but
of course it was.
But I do feel like it shows that there was probably fuel in the tank, but I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
Not an
like
all-time classic.
If he would have lived, he would have like figured it out and actually probably.
He probably. I mean, realistically, I think he would have probably been kind of awkward in the '80s, like most people his generation were. But I think in the '90s he would have been, John Lennon Unplugged, and I think I think a lot of people would have rallied around Lennon. You know what I mean? Like, so I think, and he would have gotten it together, and then I think he probably would have created some classic albums.
Yeah,
so
I think so too. I wonder if the Beatles would have ever.
It's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Maybe when the anthology stuff came out, because they kind of did some stuff then.
Yeah, they remained with George Harrison.
Yeah. George was as much a holdout as John and Paul were.
Oh, really?
Really, more than any of them. And so the fact that we're able to get George to, be involved again, maybe that's a sign that it would have happened. But if they had gotten back together, they probably would have released a couple of things and it would have been okay, and then that's fine. You know what I mean? Like the Beatles, I don't know. You can what if yourself to death with that stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I guess that's a question probably everybody in the world has asked at one point in time.
But with my Beatles background, I read a great book. It's from the 33 and a Third series on the Stone Roses. The Stone Roses broke series. Up. And now they've gotten back together and stuff. But one of the things that he pointed out in that is like every time you have a story of what if, the alternate universe is always amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, if, Jim Morrison hadn't died, they would have gone on and made all these great albums. If Bon Scott hadn't died, they would have made all these great albums with Bon Scott. But the truth is, they probably, no one ever says, oh, well, if the Stone Roses had stayed together, they would have kept releasing sucky albums until they broke up and nobody cared. You know what I mean? Like, no one ever says that, And I think in some ways you've got to leaven your enthusiasm for it. I mean, and John Lennon was a genius, but leaven that with a little bit of reality.
Right.
If John Lennon had lived, he probably would have done some corny collaborations. Like there would be some John Lennon version of that dancing in the streets with Mick Jagger and David Bowie. Like he would not have escaped the cocaine cloud of the 1980s.
No. No.
I gotta say, even though it's slightly off track, it's on the same path, just for a little tribute to the Cranberries, because Dolores passed away about a year ago, and what a loss of a person and a voice. But how wonderful that they had begun a new album and that she had done recordings and demos that they were able to take and complete, and listening to it makes me so happy to have it, because it does show that there was still vitality in their creativity and in her talent as a singer and a writer. And while it's bittersweet because it makes you feel that loss when you hear it, it's such a joy too that like, oh, they finished this and we have this. And
that's kind of how I feel when I listen to Just Like Starting Over by John Lennon, because
it's better to have
Beautiful
it than
Boy
not
on
have
it, which is one of it's a beautiful song, and it's got some stuff on it that's like, oh yeah, like if the poor man had been killed 6 months earlier or whatever, who knows, like we wouldn't have had this final document,
Yeah.
Lucky Star. I mean, Madonna is the big star of '84. Well, Prince and Madonna.
Yeah.
The number one track on here is When Doves Cry, which is hard to argue against. It's pretty good.
It is.
What do you think about Tina Turner coming back in the '80s? What's love got to do with it and all that?
I think it's good. I think this is the era of Tina Turner I know the most because I was around for it.
Yeah.
I think there was a long time had passed before I understood of her kind of breadth of work in the 70s and stuff.
Yeah.
She was like in Tommy and stuff like that, and like that.
Well, all the Ike and Tina stuff.
Yeah,
even, like
it's like in Tina records are.
They're so
really good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I have one of them.
I got Proud Mary.
Yeah. But that they're so funky, and so it's obviously horrible. Their relationship was obviously pretty horrible, but
the musical collaboration.
The musical collaborations were really good.
What do you think about the cars on this? Does the cars drive?
I don't know if I know that song, but I like
Who's gonna drive you home tonight?
I think that's kind of a cool ballad.
Yeah, I think so
too. I like it.
This is off an album called Heartbeat City, which to me, it's an extreme synthesizer album.
It is,
like it's
yeah.
really
Well, that song
synthetic
is,
sounding.
yeah,
But I kind of think it works. It kind of comes out the other side where
Agreed.
it doesn't sound. I mean, it's sort of corny because the synths, the way they're played, is a little corny.
The
but
melodies are great.
I think maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe the songcraft is so good because you might think is
Agreed.
on that. The title track, Heartbeat City, is really good. Hello Again is on that. So I mean, there's some really good stuff.
I wouldn't call this like a groove like you would think of like in funk music, but with a lot of synth stuff that's done just right. There's a groove to it that's different than a guitar-driven thing. That I don't know. It's kind of it can be refreshing if it's done right. So.
Right.
Agreed.
This is just a little personal story. I remember laying in the back of my friends. So we were going to a Rockets game with my friend Scott, and we were laying in the back of his dad's Nissan Z.
Oh man!
Like looking up through that sort of grilled window in the back.
Yeah.
And I was laying down. Maybe it was after the game actually, and Heartbeat City came on, and I was watching the lights of the city go by through this window, kind of laying there. And there's hardly any room, but just kind of looking up or leaning up against it. And I remember thinking, like, this is city music.
Wait, like Heartbeat City, the song?
Heartbeat City, the song. I was like, this is city music. This is music for the city. And I'm like in downtown Houston right now.
Yeah.
And it felt like...
It fit that moment perfectly.
It fit that perfectly. And every
that's
now and then,
awesome.
Steph can even vouch for this. Every now and then I'll hear a song that has that same vibe.
Sure.
Like that Heartbeat City vibe. And I'm like, oh, it's city music.
Yeah.
And it's like a description that only I really understand, or know what I'm talking about. But
that's interesting.
But I think it's just like when it's clean and synthetic, but like it has almost like...
But you still can, like the emotion and the kind of rawness still kind of comes through that.
Right. It's
like
still like a song. It's not like...
through.
It's not like Axel F or something, but it's got like a thing.
When I was in grade school, they had one of those. We had a big assembly, and some like weird musician guy did the assembly, and he played that song on like a xylophone or something.
Wow,
it's so weird. It's like, do you know?
That's the only way to hear it, Marty.
Axel Foley. I've heard people like to break dance. This guy was like trying to sound hip and stuff. And it was
like some guys into Lionel Hampton.
Even in fourth grade, I'm like, this guy's are you serious, man? Like break dancing? Like, you fucking kidding me?
You might want to break dance to this is xylophone break. That's funny.
That's a great memory.
He was like, the xylophone can also be cool. Like, all right, whatever. You can play Axel F on it from Beverly Hills Cop. Okay. Whatever, man. Can we just get this day over with? Like, let's get back to like learn some social studies and then be done with it.
I love that. Can we go do some math, please?
Seriously, like, can we learn about ancient Egypt now? Because this is just not doing it for me, man. Like, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Anyway, Axel F, bro.
Yep. All right, favorite songs and least favorite songs on here.
Oh man, this is
what my least favorite song is?
What is your least favorite song? I'm interested to hear this.
Almost Paradise by Mike Reno and Ann Wilson.
That's pretty good.
Ann Wilson from Wilson Phillips.
No. Ann Wilson from Heart.
Heart. Okay.
It's even more disappointing.
Because Heart's a great band in the 70s, but they suck in the 80s. They're terrible.
That's true.
But Almost Paradise is just that. Man, Ann, don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know who Mike Reno is, but he sucks.
Mike Reno.
Yeah, it's just like
he sounds like some just like Central Cal. Like, oh, we got Mike Reno in, guys. Let's give it to him.
I was like, hey, Ann, you're gonna sing on this track, all right? You don't even have a choice, all right? You got gambling debts from the 1970s.
You gotta pay the bookies off. Come on,
you gotta sing on Almost Paradise. Okay, man. Okay, Mike, I have to. Look, when Mike Reno calls, I have to answer until the debts are paid. So. But I hate that song. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I don't know the song, so I'm sure it's not good.
Man. You want to hear a little bit of it?
Sure, yeah. Play it.
Oh, it's got to fade in.
Of course it does.
Dramatic.
I think the 80s, aesthetically speaking, the 80s were the decade where the production cues were so pronounced.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fucking Yamaha DX7 keyboard, the fade in.
Yeah. Well, this is
ridiculous.
Goodbye Cruel World by Elvis Costello comes out this year.
Oh,
and I know I've quoted that on the podcast before, but he said you could pick the exact week.
Yeah. Oh my
I mean,
God.
come on, Mike.
Listen to that Michael Reno vocal. Oh, this is atrocious. Oh,
This is
oh
come
my God.
on. This is on the Footloose soundtrack.
Oh, is
Hey,
it really?
thanks, Ann.
Listen to that.
Paying off gambling debt. It's so sad because she's a great singer.
Oh, she's one of my
That's
favorites.
kind of, I'm not sure about that harmony there either.
Oh yeah.
I knew what you heard.
Okay.
But
This is everything I hate about the
enough.
80s. You guys can't see it, but Marty literally just
I
ripped
took
off
my
his
headphone. I
headphones.
couldn't take
He was
it
just like,
anymore.
no more.
well, in fairness, they said almost.
Yeah. Their definition of almost
Yeah.
is much different than
almost
mine.
paradise isn't straight
They
misery.
weren't claiming it was
Almost
paradise.
paradise, by which I mean a burning hellscape.
The original lyric.
Burning hellscape of Terre
Terre Haute, Indiana.
The original lyric was kind of paradise,
Kind of
but they
paradise.
were like, no, I think almost just a little bit more strong.
Not quite paradise.
Sort of paradise.
paradise.
Not really paradise.
Maybe paradise.
Oh,
Just enough paradise to pay off my gambling debt.
Yes. I got in trouble with a pair of dice.
she have-
And now I have to sing almost
like a
paradise. That was a good one.
Oh my gosh. Was she like a compulsive gambler or something? Or is
No,
that
I'm just making
kinda-
that up completely. Ann Wilson has no gambling problem whatsoever.
That we know of.
Yeah, that I know of. And if she does have a gambling problem, I don't want to hear about it because I just guessed.
So
Ann
I know-
Wilson is A-okay with me because Heart got back together
Yeah.
and they're awesome again. But
Yeah.
this period
Heart.
was really weak.
Yeah, it's pretty weak. It was weak, and just like you said, it was weak for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Heart was not alone with
all
that.
the dog biscuits came in the '80s, man. That's
But it also goes back to the problems we were talking about with the Bengals. It's like you have good bands and they just kind of get squeezed into this thing that sucks.
right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And it's not that
too
everything
bad.
on here sucks, but it's like the bands that were adapting from something previous started to suck.
Right.
But like there were people who could swim in that, like Prince,
Yeah.
So that's my least favorite. What about you guys? You guys got a choice?
It's kind of tough. It's one of those lists where. I know my least favorite, "Round and Round" by Rat.
yeah,
That
there we
song's
go.
awful.
That was my second choice.
Oh God, this song's so bad. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time picking my least favorite.
Really? Because I've got like 5 or 6
I
on
know,
here
that's
that
why I
could-
can't pick
Oh,
one.
okay, I see.
I'm like, there's too many. Oh, man, yeah. I don't know. I know my favorite.
What's your favorite?
What's your favorite? Yeah, I'm interested, Stuck.
Here comes the rain again.
Oh,
So
hey.
good.
Sexy.
Yeah.
What I don't. What I don't know that song. What Here Comes
Comes
the
the Rain again by the
Eurythmics, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay,
really
okay.
good. Yeah,
Sure.
that's a great
Falling
tune.
on my head like a memory.
Yeah. Okay.
Melody?
Okay. I know
That's
that
it.
song.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great choice. That's a really
And
good-
what's awesome too in that song is there's a part where she just free forms this soulful,
Yeah.
just some melody she's making.
She's
up.
great.
And it's
Annie Lennox. She's one of a kind, man.
and that's a good example, kind of what we were talking about synthetic stuff earlier.
Yeah.
Like married with her soulful voice,
Right.
It
works.
makes
yeah,
it.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's like the whole point of the Eurythmics, I think,
Yeah.
right? And she's an example of someone who could do that though and made it work. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't want to hear a stripped down version of "Sweet Dreams Are Made of This."
No,
You know,
you can
like-
have this cold, calculated synth backtrack, but then have this soulful singer on the top, and it just somehow
make it work, yeah.
Somehow it works awesome. Yeah.
That's crap. I'm still. There's a few contenders for my favorite song. I'm probably gonna say it's really close, but I'm probably gonna say it's Prince. "Let's Go Crazy."
Yeah,
That's a great song.
that is
Yeah.
a great one, and I'm going to go with "When Doves Cry."
Okay.
So we're both repping Prince here
Nice.
as favorites. Although that Ghostbusters is pretty close.
I do
come
like
on.
the Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Let's.
That
hear
would have
it
been
for
my
the
favorite
boy.
song from
In 1984.
1984. Ghostbusters would have been my favorite for sure. Okay, what about your? Did you guys pick least favorite?
Least favorite Rat, Round and Round.
Rat. Yeah. So it's really just Steph. Steph, I'm gonna pick one for you.
I
if
think
you don't.
that Almost Paradise song might be.
Yeah. Look, you want to do Almost Paradise? We'll make a deal. Okay. You do Almost Paradise, and that leaves me free to trash on Sunglasses at Night.
That was close for me too.
Yeah, I hate that song. It's just
I wear my sunglasses at night so I can.
I think if you think of it as a comedy song, it's pretty fun.
Well, yeah. If you like ironic, it's ironically amazing kind of thing.
In fact,
I mean, it is. Hold on, you're right. Ironically, it's a great song.
Well, this is what we can say about a song that we don't like or anymore. We can just say, well, if it was a comedy song, it would be brilliant.
I don't know. So do we have
our
weighed
picks.
in? The picks are in.
I think the picks are in, man.
Yeah.
I think overall there's some good stuff on this.
Sure.
I think it's a good list, but it's not a great list.
It's not great. It's certainly better, and I hate to harp on this, but it's certainly better than any early 2000s list.
Yeah,
early mid 2000s. There's still those are just. It's really, really hard finding anything redeeming on those. I mean, you could almost say that 70% of those lists could be your least favorite song.
Yeah.
I would say this list, it's very colorful.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of
Agreed.
people are trying a lot of stuff.
A lot of different things. Yeah, I would agree with
Mostly cocaine, but yeah, but like Duran's on this list, and Eurythmics are a great example of that.
Take a look at me now, Phil Collins. That's a great song, actually.
Yeah. There's just an empty space.
There's Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie does a cover of that. Postal Service. They do a cover of that song, and it's actually really good.
Nice. Let's check it out.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Cool. Fun list, guys. Check out our playlist for 1984. There's a lot of cool 80 stuff going underground in 84 too.
Yeah, sure.
REM's active at this time, and all kinds of great bands. So, 84 is we've talked before about how sometimes underground stuff is more interesting than what's happening on the charts. 84 is kind of the beginnings of indie music, alternative music is happening in the early 80s, and 84 is definitely a part of that. So
for sure.
So a lot to see. All right, well, cool. Well, do you guys want to move on and talk about? Let's
do it.
Talk about my album.
Yeah.
All right. So 1984. There's a couple of albums that I love in '84. I mentioned REM just now. Reckoning is a really big album for me in '84. There's a lot of stuff that I considered, but when it came to time to pick, it really wasn't much of a contest, because there isn't a particular album it's a mysterious album, it's a strange album, it's an album that people who listen to alternative music in the 80s probably are sick of talking about,
right?
But everybody else has never heard of before.
Yeah.
But I would say that this is one of those. It's like the siren call. Once this song this album gets in your soul, it stays there.
Right.
And let's hear a little bit of it.
Let's do it.
Beautiful tones
so
of
good.
Liz Fraser. Yep. And this is Treasure by the Cocteau Twins.
Great album.
So wonderfully mysterious.
Wild, mysterious, beguiling album, and one of my favorites of all time. I think I've talked before. 1984, I would not have been listening to cool music. I probably was listening to the soundtrack to Disney tapes or whatever. I was just a little kid. So, but I guess, I don't know, Steph, this is an album you and I have listened to together a lot.
Yeah,
it has a big influence on us as musicians and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the word mysterious is a really great word for the album, because of the soundscape of what they're doing musically, paired with her sort of dialect that's hard to place and often is in other languages, but you don't always know what she's saying.
Intentionally oblique in places.
Yeah.
I would go so far as to use the word inscrutable, which means it's not really intended to be, I don't know, to be completely understood, you know. And often, so I was thinking about this, Marty. Mm-hmm. So this band is from Scotland. It's an arty band from Scotland. Arty Scottish bands do pretty good on our podcast.
They sure do, man. Like, I'm telling you, they're like going gangbusters here, man.
So what are the other arty Scottish bands?
Bell and Sebastian.
Oh,
Bell and Sebastian. And also
Jesus and Mary Chain.
Yeah. So if you're artying from Scotland, call us up, guys. You're in. But a lot of times people say, well, you know, she's got a Scottish accent and all this stuff, but it's really nothing to do with that because, you know, I listen to Proclaimers and they don't sound like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like the it's not the Scottish thing. There's something about them that's just I don't know. It's kind of not the point to dissect it lyrically or whatever.
Yeah, a critic actually described Elizabeth Fraser's vocal approach as, this is a really good description. I want to read it because it really kind of helped me understand this album a lot, as an utterly unique performer whose swooping operatic vocals relied less on any recognizable language than on the subjective sounds and textures of verbalized emotions.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
It's so perfect describing how she sings, because it's so, and she's someone once described her as the voice of God. Yeah. I don't know. Like I was
Cocteau Twins have their fan base that are like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I said that to Courtney and she was like, well, come on, man. Like, I was like, that's pretty hyperbolic, sure. But
yeah,
I mean, you know,
I do feel like, I'll say this, one of the phrases that gets thrown around a lot, or words that gets thrown, you ever heard the phrase, or the word glossolalia?
No.
It's a word, glossolalia.
Glossolalia.
It's a kind of way to describe speaking in tongues.
Okay.
So you say the voice of God, but you know, a lot of times people consider speaking in tongues, and I'm not going to venture into the legitimacy or illegitimacy of that in this podcast, but you know, there is something spiritual that some people have found in that kind of tongue speak.
Yeah.
And this is like a musical version of that in some ways. I don't think that's necessarily what Liz herself was going for, but I think that's the, you know, maybe why people sense spiritual things in it.
Yeah.
I tend to feel, I would say some of the songs do sound heavenly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or Las Vegas. Heaven or Las Vegas?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, and I think when I listened to this, well, Kris, first of all, you said, Marty, I want you to listen to this album a couple of times because a lot of people don't get it the first time around. And like, I was very struck by it the first time I listened to it. I could see kind of everything you were talking about with the vocal approach, and just I felt like the first half of it sounds like a shoegaze album. The first half of it has the My Bloody Valentine quality to it,
right?
And the second half almost has like a Susie and the Banshees kind of thing vibe to it. I felt like the second half has more of like an instrumentation. There's more guitars. There's a little more space. It's not as muddled and stuff, and I think it makes the album flow really well, you know, because it doesn't feel like, nothing feels unnatural about any of that progression. Like, it all feels cohesive still, which is a testament to this band, I think, and you know, to their musicianship and that kind of thing.
I totally undersign with that, and I do feel like it's a very cohesive album. Like, you can kind of listen to it, you know, all the way through without it feeling like it's, despite the fact that sonically it doesn't find one trick and stick with it, you know what I mean? Like, it's going in very different directions and stuff. And
I'm really curious. I don't know if you know their writing approach. Like, do they create a track and she just sings to it, or does she sing and they come?
It's a good question.
That is a great question.
I didn't see a ton about it when I did my research.
Yeah, that would fascinate me to find out.
I know there's 3 people in the Cocteau Twins. Yeah. So it's Elizabeth Fraser, the singer and writer, and Robin Guthrie, who is kind of her main collaborator, was the guy who's been in the band with her forever. In fact, they were a couple at one point. And they had another bass player. So he was a guitar player, right? And then there's a bass player, Will something or other, and he left before Treasure. And then a guy named Simon Raymond. He just came on for starting with Treasure. So he's a new member of the band. You'll notice no drummer. So everything's kind of programmed drums. You mentioned the 808 last week. You know, like, so the 808 was a big part of their sound, but not when I think of like 808 and Heartbreak or whatever. Like, I think of like hip hop and stuff. And this is using drum machines in a much more, I don't know,
somebody had the sensibility of a real drummer who put it together, because it definitely feels like a real part. You know?
I think the purpose of a drum machine was for something like this. I think drum machines kind of unequivocally made hip hop possible. You know, but I think drum machines were for bands who didn't necessarily want or need a drummer and wanted their drum sounds to sound synthetic like this, which is not a bad thing, you know, which is, I think, what the intended purpose of the drum machine was. But I think that's okay. You know, I don't see any issues with that. But Steph, I came across this website postpunk.com that has a lot of stuff about this kind of music, and I think it was Simon Raymond who said this, and this kind of clues in on the recording process a little bit. I mean, these are very broad strokes, but it's still kind of interesting. He said, "We spent a month doing the album, and because we never really spent any time properly in each other's company, we were still getting to know each other. We'd only been friends for a little while. We just sort of recorded loads of things, and then the album came out. It's like an unfinished record with probably 2 good pieces in there somewhere. It's our worst album by a mile." So
they always do.
Two of the members say they hated this album.
This is
Robin
so British.
Said he hated it too.
That is such a, and I hate to say if you're listening in
Robin
the UK,
Guthrie,
but especially in the mid '80s, where it's like, oh, here's our watershed album, because they have a lot of great albums, right?
Sure.
But this is usually held up as their best record, and so of course they're going to say, oh, it's our worst. It's terrible.
Yeah, I've always detested Treasure, not because of the record, because of the vibe of the time. We were pushed into that arty-farty pre-Raphaelite bullshit. That's what.
Yeah, give
Robin
me a
Guthrie
break.
said
You're not
about
fooling
it.
anybody. This album is a masterpiece.
It's fantastic.
You know?
Yeah.
Their other albums are great too. Like I say, check out some of those. But
and among Cocteau Twins fans, if you look around, it's like everyone has a different favorite album.
Really?
Yeah, there's so many different opinions about it.
Yeah. Obviously, this album was not intended to be played next to Like a Virgin on the radio, right?
No.
Like
what? You're not going to hear this next to Lucky Star by Madonna. Or
No. But where did this? So, what was the soup that this was created in, right? So by 1984, punk has died off kind of basically, or it's sort of morphed into new wave. But then there's all these other little branches of it too, things like goth, which I think this is sort of a goth rock kind of album.
I brought up like Susie and the Banshees before.
Susie and the Banshees are a big one, and they got tired of being compared to Susie and the Banshees. I read some stuff where they were like trashing Susie and the Banshees and stuff, and you can tell it's just like they're trying to create this space for themselves and their own art, and they hate being kind of dragged along as like the Susie and the Banshees Junior or something, But this doesn't really sound that much like Susie.
I hear "Kiss Them for Me," and I don't hear anything Elizabeth Fraser in that song. Or whatever,
right. But I mean, like the Hyena album came out this year, Dazzle. You can hear some. I mean, it's not that far off of it. It's far enough off that it's not fair to saddle the Cocteau Twins with this Susie and the Banshees thing.
Right.
So I totally understand why they're getting rid of that. But that's also a pretty good album, guys. So don't trash.
Yeah, don't be too upset to be lumped in.
Yeah. One of the more visionary artists of that
I would
era.
say less of specific instrumentality or whatever. They do share a common mood sometimes. That's how I would.
Yeah, I would. Agree
I think it's part of the goth thing. I guess.
The mood. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of our favorite tracks on this album.
Sure.
So Lorelei is fantastic. That's what we just started with. Actually, I did want to play a little bit here from Lorelei, where she's doing some stuff with breathing. Just listen to how she does this breathing here. This is wild, But the 80s was an era of heavy breathing in songs. There's like heavy breathing in Personal Jesus, and there's a lot of songs where they're doing seductive breathing sounds and stuff.
Seduced by the rhythm.
Seduced by the rhythm, or whatever. So hot.
Dog panting.
Yeah, it did kind of sound like "Give me a milk bone," but some people would be into that. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Give me a milk bone.
But my point is that like she's using it in a percussive way as an instrument.
Which is
I think she's a great example of someone who uses her voice as an instrument.
Oh yeah. Well, and I don't know if this is something you were going to bring up, probably, but what I love about her the most is that you could listen to the song as believing one line was the melody. And the next time you listen to it, you could think of her other vocal part as the melody, because it goes beyond just singing harmonies with herself. It's really is two different parts that work together, and that fascinates me. And
you can hear that in, I think it's Ivo. Now, this is a tricky album to keep track of what the names of the songs are. All of the titles are like
one
people's
word.
names, and they're one word, and they don't really tell you what the.
Well, I mean, and it was kind of like the I kind of alluded to this before. Some of the songs are the names of mythical figures like Persephone and Aloysius and Pandora, that kind of thing. So maybe there's something to be gleaned from that. Persephone.
I almost have felt, and again, I don't think that the lyrics are necessarily the important thing. Now, it is important to say that the lyrics are strong. Now, if you go online and you try to find the lyrics, you'll find 100 different versions of them. Like different people will tell you.
Really?
Right.
That's interesting.
Because everyone kind of puts down what they think they hear.
I think it's this.
But I saw Elizabeth Fraser, or an interview with her, where she had said that, like, I think you're just supposed to listen to it, and then if you catch lines here or there and they have meaning for you, that's all you really
great.
need. Then great. And honestly, I think that is the best way to listen to it. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's important to get super involved in what the lyrics actually are, but I kind of tend to, this is just me, headcanon. Chris is the way I listen to it. I almost feel like it's a collection of letters to people she knows that have personal meanings that it's not important for me to understand what that is.
That's really interesting.
So someone like Persephone is somebody she's trying to communicate to. I don't know who that is. I don't know why what she's saying, but it's almost as if you knew that and then you were listening to something in another language or something.
Right. Well, Ivo is named after Ivo of 4AD Records.
Right.
Yeah,
so they're a 4AD band, one of the sort of fundamental 4AD bands.
It's interesting. 4AD has been a label for so long, and they're still a record label. Still have some really like marquee indie acts like Big Thief and stuff, and like.
I'd sign to 4AD. I mean, come on, man. You'd be a part of that Pixies legacy.
Oh,
part
my
of that,
God.
This Mortal Coil. I mean, there's so many good
Purity
bands.
Ring, like all these bands. Big Thief, Breeders, obviously, The National, Tune Yards, U.S. Girls. So, yeah, there's some heavy hitters that make some music on that. Yeah, This Mortal Coil was like the 4AD house band.
Yeah. It's kind of everybody kind of throws in.
Which is cool. That's not really a thing that you have in this era of music. Like, indie rock is not known for like an in-house house band. It's not. So I think that's really neat that they did something like that.
It has its own vibe and feel. I think that's cool. That's one thing. Well, that's a whole discussion, but when we were musicians, I always felt like that was one thing we were missing, was like a kind of local scene or something, like people to collaborate outside of your own band. I think that can be really helpful, healthy for you, to kind of have, like we were talking about the Paisley Underground with the Bengals. It's kind of nice to have other people who they may end up doing the exact same thing you're doing, but they're close enough that you can go to each other's shows and figure it out, and
create a scene.
Yeah. The best record labels have that too. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So going back to this, actually, you were talking about the almost like a counterpoint thing. In classical music, counterpoint I think has a very like specific technical definition, but she does tend to do that with vocals on this. A little bit of Beatrix, I think, has some of that. So let me. Yeah, here we go.
That's cool.
Here you go, yeah. It's one really emphatic voice and one kind of singing lower and softer and everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then some little soulful lines of melody just thrown in.
Yeah. That's all over the Cocteau Twins' career, but you can hear it here for sure. So, were there some other tracks? You'd mentioned Ivo.
Yeah, Ivo. Sicily is really cool because of a really cool vibe.
Let's hear the intro of this, just because this is.
This is very operatic.
Yeah.
Wikipedia describes this band as ethereal wave.
Ethereal wave?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I think there have been a lot of people who have struggled to figure out what to call this.
When I told Courtney that, she rolled her eyes. Like,
it sounds like she was kind of skeptical of this.
She
record.
was. Well, I don't think she.
That's kind of surprising because I think a lot. I mean,
she doesn't hear it. Like she doesn't hear all the contemporaries that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, I kind of feel about this band that in a way, Cocteau Twins were a blueprint band. You know, you're not going to have kind of like I said about Belle and Sebastian and the Shins and all that. Like you're not going to have like Fantagram or Sleigh Bells or Churches, bands like that. Like I think that this band really helped those bands to just maybe discover and develop their songs. I could be their sounds. I could be wrong.
Calls itself dream pop.
Yeah.
Is influenced by this band.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Or influenced by someone who is influenced by this band.
For sure.
This is the beginning of all of that kind of stuff.
And I think it's just that she doesn't hear it. And that's okay. And maybe, I don't know. I think maybe if she listened to it a few more times, and she knows the Massive Attack song, Teardrop, that Elizabeth's vocals are on. And, she likes that song a lot, but,
that's cool. I mean, it's this is what I was telling you about. Like, listen to it a few times because it takes a little bit to kind of get it. Yeah. I think once you get it, then you're
exactly
in. The first place I ever heard of the Cocteau Twins was actually I think it was in a guitar magazine, which seems insane
weird.
That they were covering the Cocteau Twins, but they like a little blurb that just mentioned them, right? And I was like, oh, who's this Cocteau Twins? I don't know anything about this. And I think there was like a little picture of someone with wild hair. And I was like, okay, some kind of goth. I don't know. But it stayed in my head. And then I remember I told you there was a guy who I worked with in the early 2000s who used to give me cassette tapes of all his old stuff.
Yeah.
He gave me the Gang of Four and a few things.
Because he was like, I'm converting to CDs.
Yeah, okay,
mini disc. Mini
disc.
God, that was...
Yeah, he was the guy.
Hindsight's 2020, man.
But he gave me like a mix of Cocteau Twins stuff.
That's cool.
And I didn't really listen to it much. I think I popped it on and was like half listening to it in the car with bad speakers and was like, whatever. And then I've got 42 other tapes to get through now. So, but I just kind of had it like on the side, for all this time. And then you and I think, how did you kind of got into it before me, I think, right?
My entry point for Cocteau Twins was the song Heaven or Las Vegas.
Okay.
And we bought that one song off of iTunes and I listened to it over and over and over and over and over. It just captivated me. I loved it so much. And
now I'm remembering because we listened to Heaven or Las Vegas, which is a great album. It's from 1990, I think. And it's on the wall up there. So the red,
the one on the left,
the one that looks kind of like a Rothko. Mm-hmm. That's So and I remember us listening to that and we're like, oh, this is such a great album. Oh man! And then we were like, people are saying Treasure is really good. We should listen.
We should check that out.
And then we listened to that and we're like, oh, this is such a great album. It was like, and then we were obsessed with that.
Then,
we'd been
dominoes fell.
Yeah, exactly. And then like you got into Four Calendar Cafe really hard.
Yeah, and I was going to say that maybe someone like Courtney might enjoy trying one of those albums first. Like Four Calendar Cafe has, it's less mysterious with the vocals. It's a little more intelligible.
Straightforward,
Yeah, but it still has a good vibe.
And that's the thing, and I don't blame her for, I get it. Like, this is sometime, like, this piece of music is very dense, and it's not like something that you might not get it the first listen or two, and you might have to listen to it a few times, and that's cool. Like, I'm like that still with certain records, with certain albums. So I can't sit here and say, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. This is a masterpiece. I'm not going to be that guy. So.
Well, I do think it is a masterpiece, but
Absolutely.
not everybody's. I understand why someone wouldn't get it necessarily. Right. That's one of the reasons why I told you. I said it's one of the more challenging albums, so make sure you check it. I'm sure there's someone listening right now who's just heard the clips and they're like, where is this going? Like I don't quite get it. But if you listen to the whole thing, I don't think it's an inaccessible album, but I do think it's one that you kind of got to, I don't know, you just got to get in the headspace for it. And if you're not in the right headspace, it's going to pass you by, But I do think that, like I said, anything that says our band plays dream pop, then they owe some kind of debt to the Cocteau Twins, whether they know it or not.
Right.
And a lot of goth music does. I hear shades of. We mentioned Dynamo that ends the album. I think even though they don't really sound that much alike, I think Sisters of Mercy probably had a thing over their shoulder listening to this. Let's hear a little bit of Dynamo. Big swells.
Yep.
But this.
This sounds like Philip Glass or something like that. Yeah. I love those vocals, how they pop in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it has a classical feel to it.
Yeah.
Vocal line.
And she's singing in all kinds of... One thing, too, about that's hard about breaking into figuring out what she's singing or not is I went through and looked at what I think are the official lyrics, maybe, because they do the lyrics on Apple Music.
Yeah.
So sometimes the lyrics she's singing in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she's singing in German.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's singing in Italian.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's got this Axis powers thing going on, but she's sometimes singing in other languages, dropping a little bit of English in with Japanese or something. So it really is more about the emotion in the lyrics too.
It strikes me that it's a great way to kind of look and analyze at what moves us in music the most, because I am a lyric driven person usually, and sometimes a song can be kind of so on a melody, nothing super fantastic melodically, but they're saying something really important in a way, and it gets me that way. And so it's just intriguing to think about, like, well, here's someone I understand nothing what they're saying, but what I hear is passion and almost creating like a whole landscape of like this dreamlike place, like that I can't, it's hard to describe. Like, it just puts you in this place, and the fact that it can do that without, the lyrics.
Did that like drive you crazy at first, that there were no discernible lyrics, and you're like, I just want songs?
In a way, it was kind of like, I must figure this out.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Then at a certain,
I like that.
And then at a certain point was like, I don't want to figure this out. I want it to stay mysterious.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like,
it's interesting.
It's very hard. We've talked about how do we incorporate like Cocteau Twins ideas into what we do, and we just can't. Like, we haven't really ever figured out how to do it, because it's sort of an all-in thing.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
And you have to have someone who is a special kind of artist, like Elizabeth Fraser is, to be able to sing over the top of that. Like, that's, you can't just sort of flirt with it. You kind of have to just do it.
Yeah, like here's our Cocteau Twins song.
You can't have it so like, all right, the first track on my album is a George Strait song, and it sounds like this. Okay, second one, holy, holy canopy. Like, it's not going to work. You can't moonlight with this stuff.
Well, and it's like, I think, kind of back to what you were saying, Steph, and it's like you have like Townes Van Zandt comes on and has just an acoustic guitar and a microphone, and he can say all these things just because he's a great songwriter. Yeah. But, this is basically, it brings all these elements in, and it paints the same kind of picture, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Like with, emotion, like these raw emotion vocals that are kind of like, not really saying anything or saying something in a different language, but you still understand it because you're a human being and you feel emotions and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I liked how you said I wanted to like figure it out. Like, I was trying to crack the code,
And then I'm like, I don't want to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe it's good this way,
but like
being abstract.
You mentioned not Heaven or Las. It's not Heaven or Las Vegas, but it's on that Cherry Colored Funk, I think, has the lyric where it's just, should I be hugged and tugged onto this tiger's mask, is what I thought for years. It was like, she's saying something about being in a tiger's mask. And then we listened to it again. It's like, wait, no, I think she's saying just tiger's madness. And then it's like, I kind of like both of those lines. Like, they just kind of live together in my head when I hear that song. And that's the other thing, is that they are carefully constructed. She's not just baby talking her way through songs. Yeah. I am curious. I don't really know much about Sigur Rós, like that band, but they sing everything. They're in a
made-up language.
Yeah, the first time I heard that, I thought, oh, it's like a Cocteau Twins thing.
Kind of.
And what are they called?
Sigur
Rós, yeah.
They're a post-rock
band. They're from Iceland, they're really good.
Country.
Yeah, for sure.
She makes up her own language sometimes, too, it sounds like to me.
Jetto Blaster. And
yeah. The volcano.
The volcano.
Yeah, it's just the accent. You mentioned Sicily. You want to hear a little bit of that?
Yeah.
So there you can hear those.
Now we're moving into the kind of new wavy kind of vibe a little bit.
I love the use of the drum machine here, though. Like you said, I hadn't thought about it that way, where it's like, this is probably how drum machines were intended to be used.
Yeah.
As a kind of replacement for a real drummer.
Right.
But I don't think it would be better with a real drummer. Like, I think there's something about the synthetic nature here that makes it special, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good little run of
it is
of
the,
yeah vocals there. So I don't know, any more that you want to say about it? I realized as I was kind of prepping for it, I'm like, this is going to be a real hard one to talk about, because it's a bit more like jazz we talked about.
It's
where
abstract.
It's like it's abstract. I was thinking if it was a painting, like in painting terms, it would be like one of those J.M.W. Turner paintings where it's almost like a pre-abstract, where it's you can make out some shapes maybe, but everything else is really just washes of color, and so it's not that it has no grounding in reality. You catch some lyrics.
Right.
It's not completely abstract, but it's close. And that makes it hard to talk about.
Right.
Other than just to give a wholehearted recommendation.
Yeah. I think the way I feel about this album, I feel like I got it the first time I heard it, more or less. But if you don't get it the first time you hear it, listen to it a couple more times, and maybe listen to some other later Cocteau Twins stuff to kind of whet your palate. Because once you get it, it's just a fantastic piece of music. Listen to it with headphones the first time too. Please,
beautiful.
Please listen to it on headphones the first time if you can. And I think this is out on vinyl too.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that they remastered it from the original analog tapes and reissued the vinyl. So I'm definitely going to get that at some point for sure. But yeah, definitely check out this album, guys. It's a really, really great album. And check out the rest of the Cocteau Twins stuff too. What do you know about This Mortal Coil album? Is it, have you listened to it at all? Or?
I don't know that stuff forward and backwards. I've listened to it before, but years ago. So I think it's pretty cool. Like every time I've listened to This Mortal Coil, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. But I've just never dug into it like the Cocteau Twins.
3 This Mortal Coil albums.
Yeah.
So,
and the Cocteau Twins participate in one of them.
Okay.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, I want to check those out for sure. So, great album. Definitely check this out, guys. I think you'll really like it.
Fantastic. Well, hey, before we transition to the next one, Steph's actually got to pop out. One of the tricky things about having, a husband and wife team here when we've got kids in the house is we have to have a babysitter. And so we played paper, rock, scissors on who gets to hang out, and looks like Steph's got to go down with the kids.
Hey, that's okay. They're probably missing their mama.
Okay. But it's been a joy having you here,
thanks, Steph. It's been great.
Thank you, guys.
Of course.
And enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah, we will. Thanks, Steph. Okay, cool. So for my album, I went with another really great, almost kind of indie album for 1984 that was released in 1984. Also kind of a post-punk in a way album, and it's one of those bands that, as I was saying before, they seem to be very kind of gleaned upon now. They're almost a band that was that's more popular now than they were back when they were active. Right.
That's probably true.
But why don't we hear a little bit of this album, Chris? Why don't you play a little bit?
Absolutely. I love that guitar.
It's so good, man. So jangly and awesome. So my pick for 1984 is Paul Westerberg and the Replacements and their album Let It Be. There it is, man.
That's
so good.
I Will Dare is one of the great post-punk singles of the 80s for sure. I would put it way up there.
Yeah. A band that sometimes gets lumped into being a punk band and being in similar scenes, but weren't really a punk band necessarily. Kind of like a punk version of a bar band, really.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It's almost like pub rock was run over to make punk.
Yeah,
and then
kinda.
This is sort of like punk being run over to make pub rock again.
Seriously.
I mean, you'd listen to some stuff on like Sorry Ma and Sting. It's definitely, they have real hardcore kind of roots.
Yeah.
But yeah, their vibe was very much, they almost were guys who just got tired of punk and wanted to do something different, you know?
Right.
And they're like the most self-destructive band in history.
Yeah, well, really, one of them.
Yeah.
They really like to drink, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that also just influenced what their attitude was for what they were doing. You know, like just kind of aggressively, singular.
Yeah,
you know, like we're just going to be ourselves, and you know, if you start to,
but still, you know, embraced the scene very much.
Kind of, but also kind of. I mean, one of the reasons why the Replacements shows were considered so volatile is that they would antagonize their audience. They got sick of the hardcore audience. I read something, I think maybe it was Tommy Stinson talking, but one of them was saying that the reason why they used to play bad covers, you know, all the time on purpose was because they were sick of punk people telling them, hey, you know, you can do anything you want in our scene, but then you couldn't.
You can't play cover songs.
You can't play covers. You have to dress a certain way. You have to do this. Like they were one of those bands that saw pretty early on how restrictive punk could be. And they kind of said, screw that, you know, like we'll antagonize the punks as much as we are anything else, you know. So
I have the book, Our Band Could Be Your Life by the great Michael Azerrad, a notable rock journalist. And he has a whole chapter on the Replacements. And Phil, Jesus, what am I thinking? Paul Westerberg has a really interesting quote that kind of dovetails on what we were just talking about. When he talks about hardcore, he says, I want no part of it. I get a kick out of the hardcore scene sometimes. Sorry about that, guys. I get a kick out of the hardcore scene sometimes. It's fast and aggressive, but I don't like all the shit that surrounds it, the group, the idea. I like to be alone and have my own idea, which I think kind of spells out a progression in a way.
It kind of starts shoveling dirt on hardcore too, you know?
Right.
The critics loved the Replacements, basically, starting with Hootenanny, the album before this.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those bands. And let's get a little idea of the background. So Paul Westerberg's kind of the creative force. I mentioned the Stinson brothers. Yeah. Chris Mars is the other guy in the band. And they're from, of all places,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? Which is a kind of a cool scene in the 80s.
It's starting to be. Yeah. Prince.
We were talking in the last episode about how that was kind of the beginning of, or that's like the apotheosis of the Minneapolis sound is like the Replacements going to see Prince. Yeah. But Husker Du is from that area and part of that scene. Yep. Soul Asylum came from that scene. Yep. There's like a pretty lively scene in the 80s based in Minneapolis. Who knew? Yeah. You know, sometimes when you think about punk, sometimes it starts to feel very small. It seems like punk only happened in three places, you know, New York, LA, and London, right? Yeah. But punk really did reach out to the rest of the world. And it's almost, I was thinking, like, this is a metaphor you would dig. I was thinking about it last night. I was like, it's sort of like ESPN. They sometimes talk about how, like, the big markets get over-talked in sports, you know?
For sure,
You know, it's like, you know, we always got to find out what the Yankees are doing.
We're always going to talk about the Lakers.
We're always talk about the Knicks. The Knicks never go to anything, but we're going to talk about them because that's the New York team.
And that's kind of true now because the NBA season just ended. Congratulations to the Toronto Raptors, by the way. Great series. But
next time, beat a fully well team, guys. Sorry.
Well, come on.
That's not fair. No, you win. You have to and good for the city of Toronto and for that franchise. It's their first one. First one. So
but now that the NBA season's over, there's a lot of free agency is like all the summer storylines on ESPN and all the sports channels revolve around NBA free agency. Now it seems like it's been like that for like the last 3 years, but or maybe even longer than that. But everybody's talking about who the Knicks are going to get in free agency.
Who cares? Yeah, right.
I mean, when was the last time they made the playoffs? Like, I don't know.
But I feel like punk can be the same way because punk was driven a lot by writers. You know, was driven
absolutely.
a lot by, and so who are they writing about? They're going to write about the people they know in their local scene.
X and Black Flag, and
right.
You know that
and
those kind of thing.
They were all great bands.
Exactly.
You know, so they deserve being written about. Sure. But what I love about the Replacements is that here's a band that's like they wrote about as if they were a CBGB's band from Minneapolis.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like it tells you something about the quality of this band that they still got people behind them.
For sure.
So that's a little bit of their background. Hardcore band from Minneapolis that starts to shift. And really, this is the album where that happens, I think.
Yeah,
Let It Be is their third album.
Yeah. And it's right before they signed to a major label, right? Is their last album on Twin Tone?
I think that's right, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think I read that.
Is Tim...
Tim was their first album on Sire.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. what is it? Waitress in the Sky? Is that song?
Oh, God, I love that song.
Yeah, it's funny.
I haven't heard that in a long time, but that's great.
Yeah, it is. It is. I was surprised when I did my research to see this as post-punk. I don't really see it as, I don't necessarily see them as a punk band, but I don't. What do you think about that?
I was thinking about it I honestly was thinking about the exact question last night. I'm like, when I think of the Replacements, here's the deal. So I worked backwards from with the Replacements. I heard about Paul Westerberg first because, like I said, 1984, the Replacements are great, but they can't compete with the Fisher-Price recording of, the soundtrack to Alice in Wonderland or whatever. Yeah. But, so I first heard of the Replacements, or first heard of Paul Westerberg on Kanak.
Oh, really?
Kanak would play stuff off the singles
soundtrack.
Dyslexic
Heart.
Dyslexic Heart.
Waiting for Somebody.
Yeah, Waiting for Somebody.
Great songs.
Fantastic stuff. But so I heard those first. And then they didn't really play a lot of Replacements, but they played a little bit off of Pleased to Meet Me. So they played Alex Chilton.
Okay.
And I think they may have played Can't Hardly Wait every now and then. Mm-hmm. But that was pretty much all that they played, I can think. They didn't play I Will Dare. They didn't really play the early stuff. But then I started hearing people talk about them. And this was a band that, going back to they were critics' darlings. Yeah. And I think what the critics heard when they heard Hootenanny for the first time, is they heard a song like Color Me Impressed, and they thought, oh, wow. This Paul Westerberg guy, he can sing and he can clearly write.
Right.
And the myth around Paul Westerberg was that one of these days he's going to write a masterpiece, just a wall-to-wall masterpiece. Yeah. And we want to be there when he does it, right? And what happens is the masterpieces came along the way. Yeah. Like for because Paul Westerberg is restless, and he's not going to and the Replacements, I think more than anything, even the name of the damn band is like they don't see themselves as
they see the second best or whatever. They talk about that in everything I read. Like even like their name was just like they're the Replacements.
They're the band that shows up when the real band you wanted couldn't be there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they like a bunch of substitute teachers. They have this almost like a chip on their shoulder.
Sure.
But in a way, it's a good thing. In a way, it's a self-destructive thing. Where they don't want to meet your expectations.
Right.
And so eventually people get tired of waiting for Paul Westerberg to create that masterpiece. But then you look back and an album like Let It Be
it's totally a masterpiece.
You just have to look at, but the thing is like from the standpoint of 1984, you would say, well, it's still got a song on it called Gary's Got a Boner.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and you've got to recognize that is a fundamental part of what Paul Westerberg is, to put in throwaway songs like that on purpose, and that's a part of it,
Yeah.
And without that, it wouldn't be great. But anyway, what I was trying to get at is that I worked my way back to the Replacements. So by the time I got into the Replacements, there's a They Might Be Giants song called We're the Replacements. Do you know that?
No,
song?
I don't know that song.
Yeah, it's literally about the Replacements. Like,
really?
Hey, where's Tommy? Someone find Tommy. We're out on the road.
That's such a They Might Be Giants thing.
It is. It's so Jesus. But like they're about half music critics themselves. What I mean?
I like them. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
But I mean, like it seems like there was like this anticipation that they would do something more than what they were. And I think is part of the genius of it, or part of the enthusiasm I have going back to it, is realizing all the ragged edges to it.
Yeah.
But having said that, Let It Be is... So going back to your original question, do I consider this punk? I consider them a band that started in punk, but really the beginning of what we called alternative rock.
Yeah, okay.
They're an alternative band.
Yeah.
And this is a terminology that has been trashed now. Yeah. Because when you talk about, alternative, I think there's still an alternative charts or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there like an alternative Grammy and stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there probably is. And it seems silly now. But I think in the 80s, you needed an alternative to Culture Club. Like you need an alternative to, and God bless him, but Prince, like there was a space for rock music that sounded like REM and the Replacements.
Well, and you call it college rock too, I guess.
College rock, exactly. That's and we would now call it indie. And all
rock,
indie is like a replacement word for alternative, because alternative came to mean creed, and to hell with that. You know what I mean? But I think of them as being more in line. Like if you want to understand them, it's probably, apart from understanding that they came from hardcore, it's probably more valuable to think about them in terms of like what REM was doing in the 80s.
Yeah.
In fact, Peter Buck plays on this album. Yeah. Doesn't he? Is it this one? I know he was going to produce it or something at one point, but didn't. But
yeah, man. Hold on. I thought I saw Peter Buck guitar solo on "I Will Dare."
Oh,
yep.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see here. So yeah, I think that one thing to cite about this album too is not a critical. Well, I'm sorry. This is actually a common theme, I feel like, in our podcast. I think a lot of the albums we talk about critical successes, but not commercial successes.
Right.
And this album sold less than 1,000 copies, like around the time it was released or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Less than 1,000
something
copies?
like that. I don't know what the time frame was, but yeah, it didn't sell very well when it came out. But yet critics loved it. Our guy, Robert Christgau, loves this album. His top 2 albums in 1984 were Born in the USA and this. Which is crazy.
Quite a swing.
The band has matured by incorporating melody in their music and felt that they succeeded by writing about their likes and dislikes rather than adhering to garage rock principles. It's pretty straightforward.
I think that's true.
Yeah, Village Voice. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, man. Paz and Jop, top of the list there.
Yeah, like 4, like number 4 on that list or something. So
yeah,
really, a ballyhooed record.
Ballyhooed.
Ballyhoo.
That's a great word.
Yeah.
Not used enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this, and you can also, bring it to be, stepping stone to their later career, but the Replacements, it's interesting in not just with the Replacements and with Husker Du and with all these bands, but I feel like you have all these bands that at some point, and co-opted is not the right word, but at some point, whoever the gatekeepers of indie culture said, these are the bands that matter.
Yeah,
and the Replacements are one of those bands.
I do agree with that.
We need to talk about the Replacements ad nauseum because they're so important to everything that we consider to be the best and valuable. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that's wrong per se. The Replacements are great.
I think it's the trick with the critics' darlings thing, and I think that's a whole conversation. Maybe it's a whole lunchtime podcast. Like, how do you handle that? Because I do think that when there are, 7 music mags and all 7 of them decide that the Replacements matter, then the Replacements matter.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's not really, that's not really a choice that was made by the buying public necessarily, but it's a tricky thing. You and I had a conversation about this once where, like, my favorite album of all time is Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. I'll just say it. Hey, everybody, if you ever were curious, that's my favorite album of all time. It was also Lester Bangs' favorite album. Do I like it just because Lester Bangs liked it and he turned me on to it?
Because it means something to you.
Yeah, exactly. But I never would have heard it if Lester Bangs hadn't talked about it.
That's true. That's true.
Critics' darlings, there's this angle of like, well, something that is great that's pushed by a bunch of critics deserves the exposure, but without that exposure, we may not have ever heard about it. Okay, that's important to point out, but it doesn't make it great. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
I do think that's part of the conversation with the Replacements. The people in the 80s, the critics of the 80s loved this band.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why people still talk about them. But I think for me, when I listen to it, I find so much great stuff in the music that I don't care whether or not, the reason I first heard about it was because Christgau couldn't stop slobbering about it in 1984. You know what I mean?
I get it. And I don't know when the time was that I really locked in with the Replacements. I think I tried to listen to some like Paul Westerberg solo stuff, which if you haven't listened to the Replacements, don't start with the Paul Westerberg solo stuff. It's not that it's bad. It's just that you won't get it, I feel like.
Although Folker is this huge album for me.
Really? You like Folker?
Folker is probably, it's one of the most influential albums on me musically ever. So, because it was the album that taught me and Steph to just go home and make the music yourself. Basically.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, he made that album in his garage, basically, by himself. Like with his kid walking into the room while he's in the middle of playing and stuff. And you can hear it. It sounds like that. But listening to it, I was like, wow, cool. Like that's exactly what I want to do. And thus we have a home studio. This home studio exists because of Folker.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's pretty amazing, man. I really like. He's got an album that's just called 14 Songs. I think it's his first solo album.
That's a good album. Yeah,
it's
pretty slick produced.
It is, but it's good.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because, and we won't talk about this. We're not covering this album. I'll just say this about it. I found that album on cassette at a Goodwill like 6 or 7 years ago for like 50 cents.
Oh, really?
And I had a cassette player in my car at the time, and I listened to the shit out of that album.
Glimmer of Light is on that, isn't it? That's a good song.
Which one?
Remember My First Glimmer of Light?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Yeah, First Glimmer. Yeah, second song. Yeah. But it's funny too because there's one song that I absolutely hate on this album, and it's called Silver Naked Ladies, and it's this bullshit like rockabilly country kind of thing. It's the worst song he's ever written. But before it, there's a song called Even Here We Are that's literally like a proto Elliott Smith song.
Wow.
Like if I played it for someone that didn't know who Paul Westerberg was, they would think it was Elliott. And I told him it was Elliott Smith, they would be like, "Oh yeah, this is great. Is this like some unrecorded demos or something?" But yeah, it's like it's so good, and it's so. But then
you have just described the critic's problem when it comes to Paul Westerberg, which is here's my favorite song, and I mean you just got animated and enthusiastic, but after it there's some bullshit that I hate, you know.
and it's the only bad song on that album too. It's just so stupid. Silver Naked Ladies, like what?
I mean, Folker, as much as I love it, it starts with a song that goes, "Buy it now, buy it now. This is my single. This is my jingle." You know what I mean? And that's
kind
which
of
is
like
funny,
an ironic thing.
Yeah, but there's only so much you can listen to that. I think it ends with like, "This is my single. Go tell Ringo," or something.
Oh my God!
He's
really?
just clowning around. This album has a song called "Tommy Gets His Tonsils Out." You know what I mean?
Tommy gets his tonsils out.
Yeah. Like there's always going to be some silly angle on a Paul Westerberg, like some half-assed piece of it. But I don't know. I think you have to learn to embrace it.
Sometimes the half-assed thing comes out and makes for really great songs.
Yeah,
you know.
But, I think that's what he thinks anyway.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I do agree with that. What else do you think? Let's go back to Let It Be now, because we've given a lot of good context here. This is a great album from start to finish, though.
Agreed.
Like I think everything on it is really good. Even that song about Gary having a boner.
Yeah.
What would you like to talk about?
I have some notes about Androgynous.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think that's
a big
song,
one.
you know, and I don't really and just stripped down piano and vocals.
Yeah.
That's it.
You know? Which is kind of, I can't remember if anything like this is on Hootenanny, but it seems like they're moving more towards the ability to do singer-songwriter type stuff if they want, you know. This ain't a hardcore song.
No, definitely not. Androgynous.
I got a lot of thoughts about this, but you go ahead and give me your...
I think I'm not really sure what... I mean, obviously they're talking about, you know, body image and maybe like gender dysphoria or something. I don't know. But the thing that really makes me think it's about that is the lyrics, mirror image, see no damage, see no evil at all. Mm-hmm. Well, then laughed at the way you're laughed at now. So that almost seems like the person in looking at themselves in the mirror is suffering from some kind of like gender dysphoria, and they're like, I don't see any damage. I don't see any, like trying to convince themselves that they're not really like, well, you know, this is just a phase. And, you know, this is like, I don't see any damage in myself. I think
fine. It's a very 2019 song.
It really
where
is,
he's basically saying, hey, you know, in the future, you know, guys who are a little effeminate, girls who are a little masculine, no one's going to care. Yeah. And if the people who care now and are hurting you, they're going to be the ones who are weird in the future. Yeah. That's really what it is. And androgyny in the 80s has I mean, Eurythmics came out this year. Prince is up there selling millions of records. You know, like there's an androgyny thing going on in the 80s.
Absolutely.
But it's also a very like, haha, look at me, I'm androgynous. I mean, no offense to Prince, because he committed to that. You know, but I mean, it was very like made for the MTV.
It was like
era.
a scene kind of thing. Right. Like Grace Jones.
But I feel like Paul Westerberg, he's almost not really even singing about that 80s idea of androgyny. Yeah. He's talking about it as we would talk about it today. Huh. You know,
so you think that he was like ahead of the times?
I think he's way ahead of the times. Huh. He was basically saying that he's almost saying there's not one gender in 1984. Wow. You know what I mean?
See, I see.
Or there's not two genders.
I see that it's like someone trying to convince themselves that, you know, I'm not really like, this is just a phase and I'm going to pass through it. And like they're doing that like not as like he's not preaching that, but he's doing that as like I'm suffering. I'm suffering because of this. Yeah. So that's really interesting.
I think there's room to interpret it.
Sure, there is.
I'm not going to say my point of view on it is.
I like your take on it though, for sure.
I think if you read it the way I think about it, I think it works that way. I don't think because he says something later about like basically that makes you think like in the future it's the normal people today that are going to be weird because androgyny is fine.
Yeah. Well, and he says something about long hair evolution, something revolution. So it won't be a fuss.
Yeah, I think that's the line that makes it sound like
brings your idea home for sure. Yeah, for sure.
It's been covered a lot, and it's been covered by like Joan Jett, who's very
Laura Jane Grace from Against Me, who is very much a key figure in the LGBTQ community. Who's trans and obviously covered that song. Yeah, I haven't heard her cover of it though. I don't know, but I remember seeing that she did a cover of it with Joan Jett. I don't know.
Possible. Joan Jett's covered it like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
She's done a bunch of covers. It's almost like her song now, which I think she's friends with Paul.
Oh, I'm sure she is. Yeah,
I know they've done tracks together and stuff,
yeah. That's pretty cool. The black. What do you feel about the Black Diamond
Kiss cover? That Kiss cover. Yeah. It took me a while to realize it was a Kiss.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
I always thought it stuck out on the album because the lyrics are so dumb.
Yeah.
But then when you realize it's a Kiss song, it's of course.
Okay.
But I think it rocks like a beast, so I think that works. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
I really like it. You want to hear a little bit of it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I was listening to the Kiss.
It sounds too good to be a Kiss song.
It does.
I'm not a Kiss fan, and some people have given me shit for that, and I just
why
I don't
Kiss
care about Kiss really.
Goofy.
Yeah, and if you like them, you like them. It's like Motley Crue, But
we've said before, our podcast isn't about coming on just to trash bands, other than Nickelback,
right?
But no, seriously, we got room for a little bit of anything,
Yeah.
But this proves that like there's something in Kiss. Because when the riff kicks in,
it's almost like they're turn the page or something.
It does kind of,
like. But this, you can tell this is really like arena rock kind of shit.
I would have loved to hear the Replacements do this though.
Yeah, me too.
Those guys around Paul Westerberg's age, like they would have been kids when Kiss was kicking off. And I've known a lot of musicians from that era, and they kind of feel about Kiss the way we feel about like Weezer or something. Where
it's really?
It's like this band where it's like, look, I'm not going to defend everything about it, but when I was that age and I heard that, it really spoke to me because
when
it was
fucking Love Gun came out, man,
you don't understand.
You couldn't touch it.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it's a good song. I'm just saying that, if you were 13 at that age, you get it. And so I think it's kind of cool that they tributed Kiss, because that is from a hard rock, from a hardcore standpoint, that would be like the opposite of what you'd do.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't cover Kiss.
Yeah, no, that would be like sacrilege.
Yeah, Ian Mackay comes to your house and kicks your ass.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Blatantly commercial nonsense. Don't you know there's a war going on in Nicaragua? Sorry, that's
oh my god, it's so good. Well, a buddy of mine, I can't remember who it was, but Pearl Jam covered Black Diamond with Ace Frehley once.
Oh, with Ace Frehley, really?
Yeah, at one of their shows. Somebody I know actually saw it and said it was awesome.
I bet it was awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's still, you got to hand. Did he come out all dressed up? Probably.
I don't think he was in makeup or anything. I know him and
silly.
Him and McCready were like noodling solo and
that's
shit. That's
pretty cool.
That would have been cool, man. Yeah.
It is a really good, it's one of my favorite Kiss songs already. Although you listen to the Kiss version and Paul Stanley's going, hit it, or something like that in the middle of it. It's just like, oh, that's so corny.
It is. But, and they kind of make it their own in a way too. They kind of like, it sounds like a Replacement song.
Yeah.
Which
well, that's why
cool.
I didn't realize it was a Kiss song for so long. I just was coming across the lyric sheets at one point and it was like Paul Stanley, and I was like, what
the fuck?
It's a Kiss song? That makes sense. Like as soon as you know that, you get it. But I'm not as into Kiss as some people, although I have seen them. But
I like so Senior Video. It's kind of like an instrumental song. So
and then they just rip into videos and
the Replacements. That's kind of a lost art. They have a song on Hootenanny called Buck Hill. That's very similar. It's like a minor key version of Senior Video because like it's all like instrumental rock, senior video, and then they're like senior video, and then in Buck Hill they're like it's like dum 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 dum. It's like this kind of walking bass line thing, and then like they'll be like Buck Hill at different points of the song. So they'll have like these really subtle, almost lyrics in them, but not really.
Yeah,
and
they're basically, and I mean the Replacements in particular, like. The way this band started, like, wasn't it like the band existed as just basically an instrumental band, like just goofing off in a
just
house,
fucking around,
and then
drinking beers and
Paul
shit.
Westerberg would like hang out outside their window and listen to them, and then eventually he just showed up.
Hey, I'm gonna sing some stuff. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool, but it sort of is a part of the roots of that, I think. It was like, this is a band that just screws around and just, hey, we came with a cool riff. Who wants to bother with some lyrics? We'll just throw some at the end,
Yeah, for sure. Play a little bit. Do me a favor. I want you to play a little bit of Unsatisfied.
My favorite song. On
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I was going to say, we have to talk about that song.
So I was listening to this with Steph, and she was the one who pointed this out. And I had never noticed this before, but she said, did Kurt Cobain listen to the Replacements? And I was like, he probably did, but I don't know. Like I've never read anything where it said that was his favorite band. And she's like, well, this song sounds like Kurt Cobain singing it.
You think, really?
I had never thought of that, but when she said it, I noticed it.
I can see it, yeah. Because it's kind of gravelly and a little more than he usually is.
Yeah, he sort of... And even the way he's turning inward on it, we talked about how punk and hardcore wasn't internally focused the way grunge was.
Right.
But this is, where he's talking about being unsatisfied. Yeah. That's totally a grunge thing. And that's where I would say, like, this is alt rock. This is really alternative music was, Yeah.
I think there's some great production choices on this song, too. You have this, like, it starts out with this really, like, that's a 12-string, pretty sure.
Probably.
Playing a 12-string, that really nice acoustic riff. It's very full. It's very wide open. And then it cuts into kind of a more, like, rock sound with, but you still have the acoustic in the mix.
You can still hear those arpeggios back there.
Exactly, yeah.
Listen to how he's, like, satisfied.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to sound like Cobain.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I had never thought that before. I wish she was here to make the point, but... I think it's a beautiful song.
It's a fantastic song.
Look me in the eye, then tell me that I'm satisfied. Hey, are you satisfied? And then as he goes down, look me in the eye and tell me that I'm satisfied. Yeah, look me in the eye. Unsatisfied. Yeah. I'm so unsatisfied. I'm so dissatisfied. Now, those are super simple lyrics, but the way that it builds to that, this sort of honesty, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like they're like having an argument in a song, It's like they're actually trying to work it out kind of thing. Yeah. For sure, yeah. Sorry, my laptop ran out of batteries.
A little bit of that 80s moment, like I'm unsatisfied with where the world is right now.
Yeah.
Like I could imagine, not that the Replacements didn't get too political, but unsatisfied with the mood of the time.
Right.
I could see that.
So Tommy Stinson, the bassist, he was 16 when they started out, right? There's a song on here called 16 Blue that's about him joining a touring band when he was like a junior in high school or something, right?
Is that what that's about?
I think so, yeah.
Good, because that makes it a little less creepy, because my interpretation of it was not so good.
Really? Maybe. There might be a sexual thing about it too, I don't know.
Yeah. I sense it as a sexual thing, but if it's more about a band, like come along with a band with us, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, I thought somebody actually told me that, so maybe I'm wrong, man. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, you never know. Yeah. I like Answering Machine too.
Oh, Answering Machine's so good, man.
Yeah.
And it's there was no one who was doing the whole like electric guitar vocals thing.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing shit like this in the 80s, and that's what I love about it. And I love how they mix in the Answering Machine at the end, you know?
Yeah. And even just the decision to write a song about hating someone's answering machine. Remember, it's 1984. Answering machines weren't like kit that everybody had yet, so it was a little bit finger on the pulse too. You hear a little bit of that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, you know who? Actually, now that you mention it, the electric guitar and vocal thing. The only other person I know who was doing that at this time was Billy Bragg.
Yeah.
And actually, this does kind of sound, now that I think about it, kind of like a Billy Bragg approach.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which is great. And Billy Bragg probably hates answering machines too, so it's perfect. Yeah, I never made that connection until right now, but you should play Back to Basics, like back to back with this.
Okay.
Yeah. Some great playing in there too. You know.
So I looked into it. 16 Blue, you were right. It's definitely about like teenage sexual frustration.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, you know, tell my pa I got a date, drive your ma to the bank. You know, kind of like everything's so weird. You wonder if you're gay and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's I definitely.
It's still a good song.
It's still a good song, but it's a little...
It's not as, like, adult, like, sensible as Androgynous or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or it's like for Big Star, like, you know, like 13 or something, how we were talking about them, you know. It's
very difficult to write a song about teenage sexual frustration when you're not a teenager at the time.
Yeah.
Because then it just ends up looking creepy. But I don't blame someone for attempting to do it because it's interesting. And all of us, if you have any memory,
everybody remembers that time in their lives.
Right.
Sure.
It's just hard to talk about once you've grown out of it.
Right. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. But so I was dead wrong, guys. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But what else do you think, man? What else do you like about this album?
I think it's. I keep bringing up Gary's Got a Boner. I'm sorry to say. I wrote down somewhere. I was like, "This is like a Tenacious,
kind of Tenacious D song."
He's got a soft on or whatever.
Jeez.
You have to take. You know, it's a yin yang thing on replacement stuff. Like you're going to get a ridiculous song like that. In addition to it all. You can't just have Unsatisfied without having to put up with a Gary's Got a Boner. So, Favorite Thing is also good, and we didn't mention it, but yeah. It's crazy to think about how this was like a hardcore band just like 2 years earlier. You know what I mean?
And a lot of these songs, I put that they're like, what did I say? They're one of the best songs to do a clean but messy song.
Yeah.
Or clean but messy sound, right? So, you know, it almost sounds like they're just like drunkenly trudging through the song, but they do it somehow in such a coherent way that you can't help but love it, you know? So...
I think the other thing is Paul Westerberg's just a damn good songwriter.
He is. He's great.
You know what I mean? And he's got a good voice too. Yeah. And so I think that's like...
And he has like a melody, like a melodic sensibility that not a lot of people have, you know? And I think that really helps him with writing strong pop songs, especially on this album.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think the Replacements as a group, as a set of musicians, are better than, 95% of your average bar bands, but they're attempting to be a great bar band. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's that Paul Westerberg layer that I think elevates them above that, And I think this album is probably maybe the best album to showcase that.
Yeah.
Because later they move away from some of the ragged edge, like Pleased to Meet Me or whatever is not as ragged as this album is. And I think it kind of suffers for that.
Really?
I think so.
I really like Tim.
I like it. I'm not saying I don't like I like Tim too, Like I love those albums, but they feel more like normal bands.
I will say like Don't Tell a Soul, which is one of my favorite later Replacements albums. I think that album's great, but the production, they sound like they're like an 80s band on that album. Yeah. They almost sound like a version of like if the Cars decided to record Replacement songs. That's what it sounds like, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know that album.
So it's good, man. Like it's one of my favorites. Like I love it. And then there's like so All Shook Down.
Which I've seen that
their
for
last
years.
album.
Yeah.
I've heard that's literally just like a Paul Westerberg solo album with the name Replacements on it. Yeah, the picture on the cover of that album was taken in Covington, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Cincinnati, from downtown Cincinnati. So that's
like
kind
a
of
couple of dogs crossing the street or something.
Yeah, a few blocks from where my good buddy Chase lived. Actually, not like I think around the time I moved here. Actually, he was living in Covington, but yeah. Pretty interesting stuff, man.
You know the story about their final gig where they were playing and they literally, as they were playing the last song, someone else came, like they had the roadies come out and like roadie replaces the drummer, and then they keep playing, and then a roadie comes out and replaces the bass player.
Are you serious?
And then the roadie comes out and replaces Paul Westerberg, you know, and literally
that really happened.
That really happened, yeah.
What?
So they had the roadies come out, replace them on stage, and they all left and got in their car and drove away from their last gig while it was still going on.
Oh my God!
To me, that's just like an amazing way to end your career.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just like that's it.
So it was all okay. It was all conceived like
it was conceived that way. Yeah,
I thought it was just like Tommy Stinson, like I can't do it anymore, man.
No.
That's you my bass, bro. Like.
No, it was like that was just like the thing. Like they were literally replacements were replaced on stage and they left.
That's fucking awesome. I love that shit. That's so good. What do you feel about the name of this album being named after a Beatles album?
I mean, it is audacious. I was reading. I mean, the first time I heard it, I was like, "You can't do that."
I was like,
"Let it be."
This is something I have to bring up with Chris.
Yeah. I mean, it's been so many years since I got over that. But I mean, I've had "Let It Be" the Replacements album on vinyl for 15 years. Yeah. So this is not like a new album for me. This is one that I've had for a long time. And the first time I saw it, I was like, "Do they not know that it's a?" You know what I mean? Like, but I saw that somewhere. I guess Paul was saying like they did it because it was like, look, nothing's sacred. The Beatles are just a band, you know, we can name our album Let It Be if we want to or whatever, you know. And I don't know that it works for the name of that. If it didn't have the Beatles association, I'd be like, what does this have to do with anything?
It's better than naming your album Magical Mystery Tour.
I guess that's true.
You know, the Replacements with Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. It is a little bit more Hard Day's Night than Let It Be.
For sure,
apart from it, I mean, being a tongue-in-cheek joke, I don't know. You know, it's like it doesn't really describe the music. So in that sense, I think it's a weak name. I do like the audacity of it, though. You know, it's just like they literally said the next album was going to be called Let It Bleed. So literally, they were just going to steal album titles from other bands.
That's kind of funny. Stones.
Yeah, exactly. So. I probably some lawyer shut that down. You know, I think it would be great though to have a band out there where every time they're like, "Here's our new album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club." You know,
we're the Replacements. Here's our new single off our new album, Meet the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly. that would be real
some, like,
audacity.
Tenacious D shit or something.
Yeah, our new album's called Meet the Beatles.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Our new it's called Beyonce. Just that's it. I am Sasha Fierce.
Dude, that would be
awesome. That would be so great.
We're the Replacements. Our new album's called Beyonce Homecoming.
Didn't the Offspring? I don't know if they actually released it, but they
Chinese Democracy.
Yeah. They were like. It was back when Guns N' Roses, of course, has this album called Chinese Democracy that they spent years and years working on. It was always like
Tommy Stinson plays bass on that album,
which is crazy.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Yeah,
you know, it's like that is not. I mean, apart from being in a band full of drunks, I don't know what the Replacements have anything to do with.
Yeah, when he was in that incarnation of Guns N' Roses that actually toured and stuff too. Yeah, which is crazy. A funny story from that era of Guns N' Roses too. Apparently, the Eagles of Death Metal opened up on one of the tours, and Axl Rose came out and said how he did not care for the Eagles of Death Metal at all. I don't think he really understood like what they were trying to do. Like it was like dance rock garage band, and they're called the Eagles of Death Metal. And he came out and said, "How do you guys like the Pigeons of Shit Metal?"
What?
He's like, "I think they fucking suck." And like, and then Tommy Stinson packed his bass and left the stage after he said that.
That's how he.
Yeah. Because he was like, "Fuck you, dude. Those are my friends." Like, and I thought it would be cool to tour with them. And like the first date they opened up, and Axl Rose decides to be a complete dickhead. Which,
look, you don't do that to even if you don't like them. You know what I mean? Just don't even. Okay, fine. Fire them the next day or something. But
say like, "Hey, man, I don't know about your boys. I don't really care for them." But of course, he has to berate them in front of the crowd.
But that shows you exactly like why that doesn't work. Why you don't put post-punk bass player in
Guns N' Roses.
You know, like,
well, I mean, they're about to play ACL this year.
Guns N' Roses are?
Dude,
oh, that's right. With Slash is back.
With Slash and Duff and Matt Sorum. And I'll be completely honest, man. I want to see it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pay to see it, but...
I would love to see Guns N' Roses in like 1989 or something. Yeah. But
this is the closest you're going to get to it. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough because I feel that way a lot because there are all these bands that I love that are touring again or whatever. Yeah. And some of them, I'm like, oh yeah, I would love to see this band. But then other times it's like The Cure. Like I love The Cure. You know what I mean?
See The Cure.
But I don't know if I'm that interested in seeing The Cure in 2019.
You know what
I mean?
It is kind of funny you say that because I mean, I saw Jawbreaker last summer. I'm going to see him again next week. And, it was good, but it's like, is this like seeing them, on the 24-hour Revenge Therapy tour in the 90s? No.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's not like we're discovering this music again for the first time. And like, it was still cool. And I'm glad I got to see him, but it was like, when they played like Boxcar, like people were crying and stuff. I'm like, you guys, they're just a band, man. Yeah. And like, they're a great band and I like their music a lot, but like you don't have to cry when they play Kiss the Bottle, like, come on guys.
I saw Neutral Milk Hotel, right? And of course I never would have had a chance to see them back in the day because I would never have heard of them. Yeah. I never did,
Yeah.
But, it was an okay show.
Yeah.
But the drummer, for some reason, that night was playing too fast. It was just like one of
I've
those
seen
things
shows like that, yeah.
where it's like, okay, but they played the songs, the first track from On Avery Island. So anyway, the drummer played way too fast. Okay. And when I left that gig, I was like, well, it was cool to hear those songs. And some of the songs came out really great. Like the version of O Comely was really good. Like there was some good stuff.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Oh, man. Seeing that live. With Jeff Mangum.
Was it Jeff Mangum or was it Neutral?
I saw both.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I remember when Jeff Mangum played the solo show at ACL Live.
Yeah. Now, O Comely on that was
I would cry.
That was shit. Close,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I guess what I was saying is I left that show and there were people who were like, that was the greatest night of my life. And I was like, yeah, but the drummer kind of ruined it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Can we all agree that the drummer ruined it? No, we can't agree. I'm the only one who thinks this. Yeah. Me and my wife.
Yeah. Steph agreed with you?
Steph agreed. Yeah. She felt like, she was like, it's good, but, and she knows those songs as well as I do. But it was like, well, I don't know. Like the groove wasn't. So I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes seeing a band after they were having, seeing a band 10 years later isn't a guarantee that it's going to be transcendent the way you want it to be.
Right.
But then some people just decide it is anyway.
And sometimes it's great to hear a band play those songs live again because you can't argue with that, You know what I'm saying? Like you can't argue.
I don't hold it against any band that wants to go on tour and play their old stuff, man. Yeah. Anybody who complains about that, get out of here.
Yeah.
B.B. King played until he was 80-something years old. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
Just... that's fine. That's what musicians should do.
Right. So this kind of harkens back to the Cocteau Twins. Apparently they got an offer to reunite in the early 2000s to play like Coachella. $2.5 million, walked away from it. Couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Elizabeth Fraser didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And the one guy, I think Robin.
$2.5 million to play one gig?
Dude, the Smiths, the same thing. They offered the Smiths $5 million to play Coachella. And they were like, Johnny Marr and Morrissey were like, fuck no. I don't want to be in the same room with that asshole. Not for $10 million. I wouldn't do it, So, it's crazy. I don't know how I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, pay us $2.5 million. I'll dress up. I'll dress in drag. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Fraser.
Yeah, that would just hilarious. You walk out, you're Elizabeth. Like me, you, and Steph will become the Cocteau Twins, but you're Elizabeth Fraser. I think we our planning here wasn't that good. God. We just play androgynous.
Yeah. All right, see you guys later.
Yeah, then we tied it all together there.
You can make the check out to Biscuit Wheels Productions, please. Thank you. Anyway, sorry to get off on a tangent there. I apologize, but yeah. So, anything else we want to say about Let It Be? I think we hit the mark pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it and love this album. Definitely give it high recommendation. Yeah. It was a great choice. And when you picked it, I was like, cool.
I know. I've been wanting to talk about the Replacements for the whole time. Yeah. It was great.
Real quick, just before we wrap up, what was your first exposure to the Replacements?
God, that's a really good question, man.
Because you're kind of Midwestern, so you might have heard, it may have been more in the air than it was down here.
Paul Westerberg was definitely in the air in Ohio for sure. A lot of people kind of mythologized on him, especially like in the indie scene. But I think, like I said, I remember eMusic. Yeah. I think I downloaded like mono and stereo on eMusic, and I didn't really get them at first. And then, as he is wont to do, my good buddy Kevin Moss said, yo, you don't like the Replacements? Let me burn you some CDs. Let me burn you Let It Be and Tim and Hootenanny and all this stuff. So, and then I was like, oh my God, where have I been? Where have you been all my life? Replacements. This is great, Yeah. So
it's always great to have friends who can just introduce you to stuff, which is what's great about this podcast, bro. Exactly. You're always introducing me to cool new stuff.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. But yeah, that's probably the time when it happened. And I've pretty much always been a fan.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
Great stuff.
Well, all right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
We have continue to enjoy every episode.
We have a lot of fun doing this. We hope you guys like listening to it, because this has been just awesome. So, and listen to all the Replacement stuff if you can. But Let It Be is a really good place to start, to be honest, because I think that if you start with Sorry Ma and stuff like that, you'll be a little bit thrown off, because they're trying really harder to be a punk band or a hardcore band, which there's still some great stuff on those albums, but Let It Be is really them finding themselves musically and like understanding who they are, what makes up their DNA as a band, and it's really fun to hear that throughout this album. So definitely check this one out, and we hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch you guys on the flip. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much.